Welcome into a special Auburn-only edition of Heating Up. We have kicked the Norrises off. They do not want to talk about Alabama after that weekend in Mississippi State. So we're talking all Auburn right here with a number one ranking as a possibility. That's been the talking point on all the national shows. And so we figured we need to come in here and talk about the number one ranking a little bit. We've got a new addition, TJ Auburn Clips, I believe he's called on the internet. He is blowing up on Twitter right now. I see people sending him money. I don't know what he's doing to earn that. TJ, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here. Glad you guys
can we get the origin story real quick of why you wanted to change it up on social media a little bit?
Nothing really special. I just feel like I have a lot of basketball knowledge, and I'm just kind of looking for a platform and avenue to share that basketball knowledge with the fans, and just pretty passionate about it. And so hopefully it'll be a hit. Hope it's been doing well so far. So hopefully we can keep it rolling.
So I'm pretty much a social media novice. I don't get in the weeds too much. Tell me what this albums thing is that you're doing.
So basically anytime I create a new highlight video, I'll just share it with everybody that's joined into the album. And so you can just go on social media, my Twitter page. And if you just give me your email address, I'll add you to the album. So basically, anytime I add new content to the iPhone album, whoever subscribed will get that information.
Interesting. I hope there's some filters there. We don't want everything going out.
Oh, yeah. No, this is exclusively the Auburn basketball album. So nice. We're good.
Well, kind of like that thing that blew up over the summer where people were buying highlights of NBA players, kind of. Something like
NFTs.
That. Yeah, it's similar to that. They're not buying mine though. They're just, when I do get paid, it's just people giving me tips for the work that I put in. So
it's basically like subscribing to a newsletter almost, but it's videos instead of written word.
Pretty much just Auburn highlights. We have team highlights, and then I'll pick 3 players of the games, and I'll do highlight reel of those 3 players from that game.
We'll tell everybody what the Twitter handle is so they can go check it out, especially all the Auburn fans listening.
Yeah, any Auburn fans out there, if you want to join the album, it's you just go to my Twitter page. It's AU B-Ball Clips, and I'll sign you up.
All right, and on that note, hey, anybody watching this show, go ahead and subscribe for us. You know, we're slowly adding some subscribers to this, and the more we add, the more it'll pop up on YouTube, and so people will watch and listen. But without further ado, let's jump into it. After Auburn's win in Oxford, Bruce was playing it up from the beginning with the pregame speech about how we could be number one. You know, some teams have lost that were ahead. I think Baylor lost twice last week. Is that right?
At home. Two losses at home.
Couldn't happen to a better guy than Scott Drew. But Gonzaga did still win. So let's first just kind of, I guess, big picture wise, let me throw it to Ed first. Bruce Pearl seems to be not shying away from it. You know, they've asked him, and you've seen from the clips him talking to the team where he's saying our big thing is make history. You know, it's written in the Auburn locker room. Everybody who used to come to Auburn, especially the guys early on when there wasn't a Final Four appearance and an SEC championship, an SEC tournament championship. It's crazy that we can say that in the last few years about Auburn basketball. But the big thing was make history. Seems like that's how he's going about it. What are your thoughts there? And, you know, if you were coaching, how would you go about it?
Man, I love it. I think Bruce embraces it because he realizes what he's built at Auburn. I think all 4 of us were there at that arena when he got hired on his first day, and we sat through those first 2 seasons that weren't pretty, but you know, he brought excitement to the program. And you know, you look at a Duke or a Kentucky, you know, they've been ranked number 1 multiple times, but to say Auburn hopefully does, especially from what we were 6-7 years ago when Bruce first got here to where we're at now as a basketball program, I think it's huge. So for Bruce to be able to say, hey, I got this program to number 1, and it wasn't easy and it wasn't pretty, but we did it, and look what we built now, and we're here to stay. You know, it's not just a 1 season kind of thing. We're here to stay. So I love that he does it. I think he uses that as motivation and like builds that confidence into his team. You know, I think our team walks around like, hey, we're the number 1 team in the nation. Whether we are or aren't, if we walk with that confidence and play with that confidence on the court, I like our chances.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So, Cody, let me throw it to you next. Kind of same question to you, and how do you react to it? I think it means that Bruce just has ultimate confidence, and he's not scared of the moment, and he's not scared to get beat either. It's not the biggest deal in the world to get beat.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta know who you have in that locker room. You know how your players tick, and I think he looks around, and he sees a KD Johnson or even Jabari that plays with a mat on. he knows that those guys haven't shied away from the moment all year, and they're going to embrace it. And it's probably just adding fuel to their fire. I mean, they know that they probably like walking around with a target on their back. And I could see that being a DNA of our team. And Bruce knows what buttons to push, and I imagine he's trying to push that button.
I like what Ed said. I was thinking back to like when I was a high school basketball coach and I was somewhere that had not won a lot in a long time. I think if we had had a really good run, I think I would have played it up too. Or if I was at Grissom High School that has won 1 million championships, I don't think I would play it up. I would be like, we're not that good, or, something like that. But I do think I like the making history. I like how you said about it's important at Auburn. It just gives a feather in our cap, I think. TJ, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I like it too. Kind of hitting off what you guys said. I mean, when you think about where we were and where we are now, it's just kind of night and day. And so anytime you can do something for the first time, you want to take advantage of it, because, these opportunities aren't necessarily guaranteed. Who knows if Auburn will have another opportunity to be number one again. So while we're here, we might as well try to make the most of it and do our best to get there.
Kind of looking at this team, let's start just eye test. This question for anybody, really. Eye test. Y'all have been watching college basketball a long time. Does this look like a team that is a ranked number one team in the country? And thinking about some of the past few years in the Auburn teams, I know our Final Four year, we were ranked pretty high there in the non-conference season. And then the year of COVID, we started like 15 or 16-0 that season. It wasn't a super strong schedule, but we ended up with a pretty high ranking then too. Let's start with the Auburn point of view. For anybody, does this team look different and a higher level than those other teams, or is this just a situation thing?
I think this. Go ahead, Cody.
Appreciate it. Oh, absolutely. I mean, so we've always had elite guard play. It seems like when our teams are the best Auburn teams that we've had recently. We have a top one pick in Jabari Smith on the wing, and you have Walker Kessler anchoring our whole defense, on top of Wendell Green blossoming into an elite guard. So we have all phases of the game. And when Flanagan came back, that just kind of it made our team, we don't really have a weak point. So, yeah, I would say eye test wise, it's a lot more balanced Auburn team. We played team defense better than some of those other teams. Now, we might have some better individual defenders, especially on the perimeter, because I know Bryce Brown was really good on ball defender. Obviously, Isaac Okoro, he's making a living in the NBA being a good defender. But as far as all-around team concept, yeah, this team is by far the most balanced and solid team I've seen here at Auburn, especially here recently.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. And like Bruce has been saying, any game that we play, we're going to have Jabari and the other team's not. And so I think that in itself is a big factor. And I also think that this team, just the fact that they're so good at defense and we can score the best of them. But when we're not scoring, the fact that we can rely on, having that elite defense with Jabari and Kessler down there, I mean, that's just huge. I mean, that helps you win on the road too. And so that's why we were able to come back last game from, down 14, is because we can sell a lot of stops, and so our defense is always going to carry. And so that's one thing that I appreciate about this team and why I think it does pass the eye test.
Yeah, this may be like a straw man argument. And I do like that Bruce has given Jabari the credit, and a couple times in a row now I said, hey, these teams both played well, but we had 10 and they didn't. Can we also say that about Walker Kessler on defense? My goodness. I mean, yeah. I know he's had a couple rough games, and it's easy to say after this last game where he looked so good, but I think every single night he affects the game so much defensively. He might be a SEC Defensive Player of the Year candidate. So I say we got that guy on both ends right now.
I would agree. When you look at our team too, like if you look at the past national championship teams, they all had really high guard play, but then they also had that big guy down low that was the trash guy or the big rebounding guy. Look at Baylor last year, Davion Mitchell, Jared Butler. They carried that team, but they had those big guys down low that were physical and had that defense. You look at Virginia, Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome, who did double dribble, but you had that guy, their big guy, I think he had blonde hair.
Or something.
Yeah, I mean, you had that guy on the back anchoring that defense. You also have your punter, playing great defense as well. So, Villanova, you had Josh Hart and those guys, but they also had those big guys down low. So, like, we have the making of that team. Wendell has surprised us, KD has surprised us, but then when you have somebody like Walker Kessler, And let's not forget, we got the number 1 draft pick as well. Like this, we got so many pieces and so many different ways to beat you. But what remains consistent is the defense. So, I mean, I like our chances. It's early. It's only January. We still got a long way to go. But, we have on paper what looks to be a team that can contend.
So y'all all agree that this team is a step above any of those other teams in the past 4 to 5 years?
I think so. I mean, the point that you just made with Walker Kessler, I mean, you think about, and the point Agar just made, Austin Wiley was our guy on that team. And I think, I hate to compare guys, but I think about Walker Kessler compared to Austin Wiley. If you're just comparing their defense, Austin was a heck of a defender, but I think it's added another level with, Walker Kessler. And so just that added dimension alone. And then I think, Jabari is probably night and day better than anybody else on that team too. So it's just
I
those
agree,
two
but
two
defensively, I mean, Bruce was hyping up Chumo. Kiki has been a defensive player of the year type guy. And he won a couple games with us being able to switch defensively and him guard point guards. Like, was it Kyra Lewis that he picked his pocket and had one of the biggest plays of the game right there? Anthony McLemore was a heck of a defensive player. Horace Spencer off the bench was a really, really good defensive player. And I think Wiley's not Kessler, but he affected things at the rim. So I just don't know that I put this team that far above that Final Four team. And I think when they're going on a run, that Final Four team could get nuclear hot. That this team is starting to do it a little bit, and that's Wendell, and they're starting to do it a little bit, but they're not. They have, and it's January. We got ways to go, but they have not done it as often as that Final Four team did. So that's why I'm not ready to just say, hey, this team is night and day, or another level above the Final Four team. I think the Final Four team, I mean, obviously they went to the Final Four, but they were up in that, could have been ranked number 1 and shouldn't have batted an eye at that either.
Well, and just kind of piggyback off your point, especially like in the tournament when stuff gets, the pressure cooker gets turned up to max, it really seems like it's guards that flourish. We had Jared Harper and Bryce Brown, two, like you say, could go absolutely nuclear at any given point. And we have one guy that we know when I haven't had a chance to talk about the Alabama game, but when he was the best guard on the floor to close out that Alabama game when Wendell hitting those deep shots. So that's very promising to see. But I do agree. I think overall our team defense has a higher ceiling, especially with the shot blocking ability than with Kessler and even Jabari. I mean, Jabari's a hellacious defender down there, but if we can prove that our guards are going to come along and give us just 80% of what we were able to produce on that Final Four team, this team is solid. It's a solid team. And maybe that's something Flan can do for us. Flan is kind of, I think he struggled last game a little bit, but maybe he can be add us a little more perimeter playmaking ability too.
And I agree offensively. I've been saying it all year that Auburn can win so many different ways. And I don't know that team could do that before. I think they always kind of won the same way with really great perimeter defense, hot 3-point shooting, and, some plays from Anthony, and that's kind of how they won a lot of games. But if you think about how good Samir Dowdy was the next year, he was on that team coming off a 6-man. If he could have gotten going a little bit, that team had a lot of ways that they could win too. So I just don't want to discount that team. I think they're right up there with what this year is, and we'll just have to see.
And Anthony also is one of the best rebounders. I don't feel like as good as Walker Kessler and Jabari's been down there. I like to have Anthony down there rebounding again sometimes.
Hey, while we're just kind of talking about this team a little bit, let's talk just a little bit about rotation in that Ole Miss game. It seemed like it got cut down a little bit. Leor didn't get his rotation, and Chris Moore didn't get one either. It's been a couple games in a row now. I think Chris Moore didn't get one, but Leor had gotten at least one rotation, I think, in every game, definitely every SEC game. He did not get one, so we played 9 guys, and even in those 9 guys, Jalen did not get as much time. Dylan Cardwell did not get as much time. Devin Cambridge did not get as much time. It was like 12 minutes for Devin and like 8 and 7, I think, for the other two. Do y'all think that was just situationally we were trying to come back? And so in the second half, maybe around that 12-minute mark when they would have had those other guys in, they stretched them out and had Jabari and Kessler and some of those guys play longer. Any thoughts on that becoming more of the norm, or if that was just a situation thing, or what do y'all think?
I'd say a situation thing, just because how well Kessler and Jabari were playing defensively. And then what those two are able to do to that zone defense that we're running. So we were talking, and I would have liked to see Jalen, Jabari, and Kessler play a little bit, just because I don't think we don't drop off that much defensively, and I think it just adds another level of options offensively. But I think it's not a hit on Jalen or Dylan, because they both played 7, Cambridge 12. I think it's just a matter of we made a run with the group we had on the floor, and then Kessler being 7'1" and Jabari being 6'10" with a 7'1" wingspan. You just can't replace that, right? And they were playing so well. They were giving Ole Miss so much trouble defensively, and weren't able to get anything easy around the rim. So I don't think we might see that a little bit more as the season goes, as games get more tough, and so be it. But I think it's just kind of situational thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I thought, after the game, Bruce said that the difference in the game was the four players that we had, and he meant his 2 guards and his 2 big men. The 2 guards, Wendell and KD, and then of course Jabari and and Walker. So when you got those guys and you're in an intense situation, pressure down on the road, you kind of want to rely on your big dogs, and so they pulled through for us. And I just think it was it's one of those games where you want to rely on the guys that for sure are capable of turning the corner.
What do you think, Cody? You think that is something that's here to stay, or that was more of a situational thing? What's your opinion here?
Well, I think it was more of a situational thing. Ole Miss's big man, Brooks, he was playing really well offensively, and I think that really kind of handicapped us as far as having just a free rotation over our big man, because you really needed Walker Kessler down there to neutralize him. If he wasn't playing so good offensively, and also they kept throwing that, was it 1-3-1 at us, and it's just really nice to have Jabari's shooting ability from perimeter, and we're able to stretch that zone out and let Walker Kessler leak in on the backside. When you get Jalen and you get Dylan Cardwell in there, I love those guys, and I think Jalen's a really good playmaker, but things just kind of get a little bit closer together, and it's easier to play a zone a little bit, in my opinion.
That makes sense.
And you got to think too, think back to the Bama game. Cardwell came in, got big minutes, and we need that kind of energy coming off the bench. So I think we're going to keep on getting that. I think Bruce loves that, knows what it means to the team. Going back to the Florida game, Jalen Williams, 14 points, played really well. So that's why I think it's situational. Who's playing well, who's bringing the most to the team, not just offensive but defensively as well. So I think we're going to see ups and downs from our bench play, but guys are going to get minutes, and if you come in and you contribute, then you play more.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if it's a little bit more of the norm in that 2-guard situation where they basically just rotated Jasper, KD, and Wendell all night. I don't know. I'm sure Leor will get an opportunity every now and then, but I don't know if it's going to be a baked-in rotation for him where he's going to definitely be going in. And if those guys are playing well, I think it may have to do with KD playing well. Also he played a couple more minutes than normal, and Zepp was getting after it out there too. And then the 2 things I did want to mention, I don't know that they had any real impact. I didn't hear Bruce talk about it after the game, but he was real quick on post game because they were trying to get out of there. But Dylan Cardwell looked like he just got the breath knocked out of him or something. He was like holding his chest, holding his stomach there for a minute when he got taken out. And I don't think he went back in the game. Now he was still hyping the crowd up on the sideline, so I'm guessing he was okay. And then Jalen, I don't know if y'all noticed this, but they ran an inbounds play for him for that little left-handed middle of the lane shot that he makes. First of all, that's a really hard shot. I don't know how he's so good at that, but he missed it. And then like a minute later, he got the ball in the same situation and didn't take the shot and kicked it out to, I think, KD, who made the 3 at the top. It was KD or Wendell. I think it must have been Wendell, because that one for KD, Wendell passed it to him when he dribbled under. But if y'all go back and look, I think it's early in the second half. I don't have the timestamp, but Jalen had the ball middle of the lane in the spot he likes and didn't take the shot and kicked it to the top of the key. And somebody made the 3. But if you watch Bruce, like when he's passed the ball, he like throws his hand like this, and then he didn't celebrate after we hit that 3. And I think that may have been a little bit of a trigger to Bruce that, hey, Jalen didn't make that first shot, that he's not confident right now. And, he's not in it. It might just not be his night, because y'all know Jalen has been a little bit of a roller coaster in that way, where he can get going and have really good games, or he can kind of disappear for a while. So I'm not saying that's the reason he didn't go back in, but I noticed it. Now, I didn't know if anybody else noticed the play I'm talking about.
I know a player we talked about. I think it was Wendell that made the three, but I didn't think about it the way he thought about it as far as him not having confidence. But I mean, that makes sense. And I can see, Bruce getting mad because you definitely, somebody like Jalen, who's a veteran, should never lose confidence on any missed shot. And so it'd be kind of disappointing if that were the case.
And it may have just been him trying to read the room, and see that and get ahead of the game because it was an unselfish play. He got an open three, but it was like Wendell from 28 feet or Jalen from 4 feet in the lane didn't want to take it. But that was just something. Any else specifically on this Auburn team anybody wants to hit on or the game before we kind of jump into this Auburn versus Gonzaga, number one in the nation talk?
Yeah, I wanted to go back. So on the rotations, I just got to shout out Chris Moore, and the new video they just put out. At the end of the video, you can just see Chris Moore didn't play all night, but he was as hype as anyone, just hyping us up, saying we're the number one team in the country. And it's that stuff right there that makes this team so special. It seems everybody's bought in, whether they're playing, whether they're on a limited role, whether they got a big role, it really doesn't matter. All of them are one goal, and that's to win. And they basically, I guess it seems like they're cheering for each other. And, those are the type of teams that do special things. And so hopefully they'll keep it going.
Yeah,
that was
to that point, TJ. I don't know if you got to listen to that podcast with Jeff Goodman and Jeff Bammer Goodman and Bruce Pearl and Robbie Hubble, but one of the biggest things he said about Jabari, the biggest surprise was how good of a teammate he is, and he doesn't care if he gets 20 points and his teammates get 20 points. He just wants to win. So I think that's one characteristic you're talking about. Guys just want to win. I mean, that guy, he could be getting 20 shots up and making sure he's the number one pick, but it doesn't matter to him. He just wants to win. And he's talking about from a prospect and a draft ready guys look at that winners. So I think that's key.
Yeah. And just to kind of piggyback off team chemistry, just one observation I made. It was about 2 or 3 minutes in the second half. Wendell drives it deep and passes it right back out to KD to hit it at the top of the key for a three. And when they went back to the bench, I don't know if you guys seen it before they cut to commercial, Wendell and Katie were just sitting there yelling at each other. They were so pumped up at each other. Like, you would have thought Wendell would have hit the shot and KD, you just didn't know. And I think Jabari came over there and dapped him up. You can just tell that this team, and we've seen it a couple of times now, when the spotlight gets bright, you got a bunch of guys that are rooting for one another, and it's nice to see out there.
He did something really similar too. He had that 2-on-1 and handed it off to Allen Flanagan when he probably could have finished and usually does.
Yeah.
He handed it off to Allen and he hit kind of a tough finger roll. He went to Flan and was slapping his hand over and over, trying to hype him up and get him into it a little bit. So, I mean, KD's psyche is important for this team. And there are some games where he checks out a little bit. So I think Wednesday night we'll have ultimate KD going against Tom Crean after he called him out a little
50.
bit.
He's dropping 50.
And at some point we might wait until a couple more games. We need to have to talk about Allen Flanagan a little bit. He's bringing some stuff to the table that's really helping this team, but he's not there yet. And he had a couple breakdowns in that last game. That defensive breakdown late in the game, that was bad. That could have been costly if a couple things changed. But I know he's just getting back in the swing of things a little bit. So we'll hold off on that, but that's definitely down the road if things don't improve. So let's jump into Auburn versus Gonzaga. So I know, Cody, you had some of the stats pulled up that kind of compare these two teams. And, why is everybody – it's almost like a talking point that Auburn is going to be number one, even though Gonzaga, I think, was 2 last week. Why do you think that Auburn should jump them? And I guess we'll get into predictions at the very end, kind of a gut check. Do y'all think we're number one tomorrow or not? But what's the thought process of why the national media or some of the local guys think that Auburn's just going to jump Gonzaga? I don't think that's just set in stone.
Well, just some of the few stats that are numbers that popped off the paper for me for why Auburn should be ranked ahead of Gonzaga. So Auburn right now is 4-1 in quad 1 wins and 4-0 in quad 2. So they're overall 8-1 in quad 1, quad 2 wins, where Gonzaga's record is 5-2 with quad 1, quad 2 wins. That's pretty drastic. And another thing that also popped out to me was strength of record. So for the people that don't know what strength of record is, because I really didn't know right until I looked it up here recently, but it's a measure of a team's accomplishment based on how difficult a team's win-loss record is to achieve. So right now, Auburn's strength of record is first, where Gonzaga's strength of record is 10th. and that's a pretty big difference right there.
So it's kind of a combination of strength of schedule and then how you actually did against that.
Yeah. So like if Gonzaga had our record, they would not have the same record. I mean, if they had our schedule, they would not have the same record we did. And if we had Gonzaga's schedule, we would have the same record as we have right now. Or
And
Gonzaga has.
You're referring to the net for those quads, right? And right now I've got Gonzaga as number 1 in net and Auburn as 4 in net.
Yeah.
What about
there's a couple statistics out there that has, like you're looking at the net or RPI, I think has Gonzaga over Auburn.
Ed, have you seen anything statistically that jumps out either way why one team should be higher than the other?
Oh, I wish we still went by the RPI. I don't think anybody uses that anymore. It has Auburn at 1 and like Gonzaga at 31. So no, I think most of the things I looked at, similar to what Cody said, just everybody's comparing the quad 1 and 2 wins and losses for both teams. I think Cody mentioned earlier, if there was only like an opponent that they both played and we could kind of judge off who's a better team. One team played them basically at home, and the other team had to play them at their place. But
in my opinion, Bama was clearly the better team that night. Like it wasn't really close. It was not like Gonzaga, I felt like, just squeaked out a win. I think Alabama pretty much dominated that whole game.
I had a couple notes here. This is from this guy. I don't know if y'all follow him on Twitter, Orange and Drew, but he had some comp stuff. And let me look right here. It talks about the quad 1 and 2 together record, and it talks about strength of schedule and strength of record. But they also talk about their best wins and their loss and what those people were ranked, just for people listening. And if you base it off net, Auburn's best wins are LSU, who's 12th, at Alabama, who's 17th at that time, 29 Loyola Chicago on a neutral floor, Florida at 37, and Murray State at 51, where Gonzaga had 13 UCLA on a neutral floor, 15 Texas on a neutral floor, 16 Texas Tech on a neutral floor, 22 BYU, and at Santa Clara at 86. So kind of a big jump right there. The thing is, I feel like even if they don't jump Auburn up over Gonzaga right now, we're going to have a whole lot of more opportunities to get some of those wins to justify it in a couple weeks. Because if you look at that, they did have a pretty good non-conference schedule, which they have to. TJ, do you think the AP voters might keep kind of putting Gonzaga up there to, because they scheduled like they did, and maybe don't dock them for scheduling an Alabama or scheduling a Duke, their other loss?
I could see that. But I do think that we are deserving to be the number 1 spot, just because I think strength of schedule, straight up strength of schedule,
18 and 182.
182.
Auburn is 18th and Gonzaga is 182.
I mean, that's
according to
a
Ken
huge difference, And so I mean, if you're just going off resume, then I don't see how you couldn't. But I guess if you're just going off of the odd test for Gonzaga, they're beating everybody about 40. But I mean, if you're playing weaker competition, then I mean, is that really? I mean, and they're a good team. I mean, I guess you can't go wrong with either one. But I would definitely favor Auburn, and I also think that there's some bias towards Auburn or anti-Auburn, just because our
anti-blue blood,
or just because our program was so bad for so long, and I think that perception is still out there in Auburn basketball, and so giving us the benefit of the doubt in these situations is kind of hard for a lot of these analysts. And I feel like, say we were Kentucky had a resume, I have no doubt that Kentucky would automatically get that, that 1 seed as opposed, but Auburn, which kind of
and that also feeds into preseason rankings a little bit, which I think are dumb. Why should there be preseason rankings when you don't have information about this year's team at all yet? So I think Gonzaga being higher, I don't know what they were preseason, but I bet top 5. They may have been 1. They were pretty high up there.
I think they were 1.
So I guess it's like, hey, if you've got them at 1, they lose to an Alabama team that everybody was really high on. They lose to a Duke team that, people love to put in the number 1 spot. And then they ran off those games against UCLA and Texas that people love, And then in conference play, it's not like they're squeaking by. I don't know if any of y'all have their last couple games, but they are like massive wins. So it's not like they've dropped the ball at all.
Yeah, go back to TJ's thing. I mean, their last 5 games is a win against Santa Clara, BYU, Pepperdine, UNA, North Alabama, and North Arizona had a game postponed. 2 games, San Diego and Loyola Marymount. If you look at ours, you got Ole Miss, Bama, Florida, South Carolina, LSU. So, I mean, I think the riders are going to look at their non-conference and vote. And I don't know, we're the talk right now because of what we've been able to do, but and kind of the hype and the energy that Bruce Pearl brings. But I don't know, it's going to be tough. It's going to be interesting. I think it'll be close. The voters, I think it'll be close.
Just kind of I don't know, from a marketing standpoint, we got Kentucky coming to our place pretty soon, and it would be nice for them to be able to market number 1 Auburn versus a lot of people are putting Kentucky up there in the top tier of college basketball, especially with their dismantling of Tennessee this last game. So I mean that's shaping up to be just a huge matchup between Auburn and Kentucky for supremacy of the SEC. And I don't know if they take this in consideration at all, but just having a number 1 by Auburn might draw a couple more viewers.
Yeah, and Kentucky's got a big game Wednesday. They play Texas A&M at Texas A&M. So.
I'm not a believer in Texas A&M.
I haven't really watched them play, so I don't know.
They're fine, but go look at who they've beaten so far. I mean, it's the bottom of the SEC.
Really?
I just think, and I'm not saying it doesn't matter because I do think it matters. I think it'd be a great feather in Auburn's cap to be number 1, but we're going to be on national TV more than Gonzaga the next few weeks. We're going to have more opportunities. So, I think if we keep winning, it's all going to take care of itself, obviously. But it would be a really cool thing because, we'll put this up in the locker room somewhere, for a long time. I don't think Auburn has ever been number 1. I think it got as high as number 2 in 99, 2000, the year after we were really good. And see, that's what happens too. Next year, we're going to get the benefit of the doubt if we could finish strong this year. Like in 98, 99 is when Auburn was really, really good. And then 99, 2000 is when they actually got the higher record or the higher, number by their name because of feeding off the year before. So I think that's definitely a possibility that if we can keep this thing going a little bit, that next year we do have the benefit of the doubt. Like TJ was saying, that we don't have as much right now.
Yeah, that magazine with Chris Porter that says we're number 1, it threw me off. I didn't realize that was like
Sports Illustrated. Yeah,
Sports Illustrated, and it was a preseason thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the highest we were ever ranked in the AP that year was number 2, to your point. But that'd be neat. I mean, it'd be cool to say we're the number 1 team in the country.
I'd like to know the process behind these AP voters. Are they going and watching every single game of these teams? Is there a highlight package that is put together to send out to these guys? It's hard enough I'm really trying to really watch almost every SEC game, at least part of them. I'm watching every Auburn Alabama game, and that's more than I've ever watched Alabama before. I'm trying to watch a little bit more of SEC play, and that's hard to do. I can't imagine watching it all. Do y'all think there's some system, or are they just spitballing this thing out there?
Ride the narrative.
A lot of them is based on the computer rankings, so that's what I've heard. I don't know.
Yeah, let the analytical guys do the work for you, then you kind of go look at some highlights and then make your judgment.
I was going to try to find it real quick, but our guy Pablo Escobar has been on there hitting up every AP voter on Twitter. Have y'all seen any of that?
I think he sent him a warning shot. He was like, I'm asking generally the first time, but if you don't do what I say, it could be bad for you guys.
He got somebody to go ahead and say they're doing it. I'm gonna see if I can find. I think the guy was from Atlanta. He was like a Southeast guy, but one guy came back to him and said, "I got you," or something like that.
Yeah, it's all those Pac-12 writers that just don't have no love for Auburn or just rank us low. But
that's one thing about Auburn Twitter. You don't want to get on Auburn Twitter's bad side.
Man, where did that come from? Where did Auburn social media?
It just blew up. It started small and just all of a sudden just exploded.
Have y'all seen that Auburn's like selling shirts now that's got that on there? Like officially?
I did see that, yeah.
It's like you just lost Auburn social media mob. I guess they couldn't use Twitter. They get in trouble or something, but it's wild.
Hey man, social media is the world we live in.
TJ, can you explain the Murray State Alliance? Have you been seeing that and know what that's about?
I really don't know. I know, so the Auburn Twitter thing, they'll, after the opposing team loses and they post the final score, they'll go in there and blast them with memes. Well, apparently we beat Murray State and they posted their final score and we blasted and I guess blasted them so much they ended up deleting the final score post. And so that pissed off the Auburn Twitter people even more, and so they're still going at him, and they've been going at him, I guess, ever since the game. And that was what, a month ago, 2 months ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I think, is it named Tevin Brown?
Tevin Brown, guy from
player?
Fairhope. Yeah.
He finally posted the score himself, and so I guess that resolved everything. That's like the peace treaty, and so I guess we're good now, and they're on our side. So.
And then there was Auburn fans, like there's like an alliance now. When Murray State drilled Belmont, Auburn fans went on Belmont's post and started putting memes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Murray State's doing it for our losses too, or the teams that we beat too. So it's going both ways.
That's funny.
I like the alliance. I like that we play Murray State too. That's always been fun. I mean, it's fun because we've kind of won some games against them, but
Yeah,
but
probably would be saying that if we were losing to them.
Any early thoughts on Georgia before even getting into Kentucky at all? Any early thoughts on Georgia Wednesday night?
We don't need to come in, and we get it. Georgia's not a very good basketball team, but we hope, and Bruce doesn't allow us to do this, but hopefully we don't come out with that kind of mindset that, hey, this should be a easy win. And looking ahead to Saturday against Kentucky, hopefully we come in ready to play and we take care of business.
Cody, do you think we should take one for the team and lose so that maybe Tom Crean keeps his job and we can keep dominating the recruiting landscape in Atlanta? I mean, big
Maybe
picture,
be playing
if I could trade a Kentucky win on Saturday, but we had to lose to Georgia on Wednesday, I'm taking it. I'll give that up to Tom Crean.
For sure.
Playing 4D chess over here.
Any other thoughts on Georgia? TJ, you going to be in the house?
I should be. Yeah, it's a hard ticket to come by though, so we'll see. Maddie, my fiance, she works in the athletic department, so sometimes she's able to get tickets. But when there's crowded like this game is going to be, they might not be able to allocate any to her. So we're still playing it by ear, but hopefully we'll be able to get in there.
Go ahead.
Did you guys see where the game in Athens is sold out because all the Auburn fans bought
So
the tickets?
that was my next thing to y'all. What are y'all's thoughts on this Auburn traveling all of a sudden for basketball and being thousands of people at all these games? Where do you think this is coming from?
I think it might be a little bit of the pricing at home. It's a high ticket to get right now, and so
that's what Kentucky fans have said forever. That's why they travel so much. It's too hard to get a ticket at Rupp.
Yeah,
I tried to get me and my dad a ticket before either the Alabama game or the Kentucky game. Yeah, right. I might be Texas A&M before I get down there.
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, a lot of our fans are outside of Auburn, so it's like if you got to travel 3 hours to get to Auburn or 3 hours to get to wherever the game's going to be, you can just say, hey, you might as well just go to the away game, just as far away.
And
I think that's a good point.
And everybody's here to travel. The away games are fun, especially when you win, especially when you can win and walk around, with your head all up high. But it's just cool to experience. I think we've all been to Knoxville and Athens. I tell you what, it was nice to be in Tuscaloosa last week and walk out there with a dub and walk around when we won. So I think it's fun.
I agree with TJ about being all around the Southeast, having alumni, and so being able to get to where we're from, it was just as easy pretty much to get to Oxford than to get to Auburn. It's about a 3-hour drive or a little bit more. So I thought heavily about going. But another thing is I think this fan base is hungrier. I mean, since the beginning, like talking about how many people showed up to Bruce Pearl's press conference, showed up Gardo was there at midnight when his show calls ended. This is not starting now. I don't know if y'all remember. It was like one of the first couple years. The first time they took a bus, and I think it was the Georgia game. And it's probably 60 people on the bus or whatever, but it was a bunch of 60 people from Auburn that rode to Georgia to a random away game, and they were all up in the upper deck, and we won the game. I think this is obviously bigger because we're having a good season, but I really think this thing has been started for a while. I think we're hungry and we want to win, and we're going to support a winner, no doubt.
Oh, well, I remember when Bruce first showed up on campus, and we had any semblance of success. I think it was we were all there. I can't remember what year it is. We beat Xavier at home, and we had no business beating Xavier. Every one of the players were out in the lobby to meet the fans and the students that came out. And, it's just those little things, that Bruce is kind of ingrained in, grassroots approach to getting our fan base excited. And also we're we're a little brother a lot of the times to Alabama in football. We're looking to have some dominance somewhere else, and our fan base is just hungry for any kind of athletic success. And I think that has a lot to play with it or to do with it.
Do y'all think that not enough was made of last year not getting to have full crowds at Auburn Arena, and that maybe, we had some issues on the team and with Sharif was missing and whatever, but did that have a bigger toll on the season than the national media or even the beat guys make it out to be?
100%, especially when you think of Auburn Arena, home court advantage. But I think people are just hungry to get back into the arena and see Auburn basketball, especially with the year. I mean, we got a season stolen away from us during that COVID year, and even last year, when it's limited seating, and then Bruce puts out a team like we have this year, it just adds on. It's just all those different things I think go to what people being hungry to go see Auburn play, whether it's at home or on the road.
I was thinking it's a perfect storm right now.
and we all know that fans are important, are a big part of the game. But the thing about Bruce, he does a great job of making the fans seem like they're important and engaging with them, and that just gives fans a reason, an extra reason to want to go to the games, because they feel like they are adding value to the team, and they feel like they're a big part of the program.
No, he's a genius in that. He's a marketing absolute genius. I know, super off topic, but I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about this guy who runs Franklin Barbecue. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of that in Austin. It's like the most famous barbecue place in the world, and the lines are like 6 hours long every day, and they sell as many briskets until they sell out, and that's it. But people that go, they don't complain about the line, because the owner, this Aaron Franklin guy, like walks around and talks to you and makes you, and the guy was like, he makes you feel like you're the only person in the room and that you matter more than anything else. And he was talking about the guy who was doing the podcast, like, the only other person I've met that has done that has been Bill Clinton. And I was just like, you know what? Bruce Pearl does that. If you have a conversation with Bruce Pearl, you think he is completely listening to you and cares about what you're thinking. And if you do that 5,000 times, you're gonna have 5,000 believers, and he has done that. And I think he's just a marketing genius, a people person genius.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we're winning now, but I mean, those first couple of years we weren't winning, and we were still sold out games, and fans were loving it, and and having a good time. And so it just shows you the type of person he is and type of program builder he is.
You could definitely feel underlying energy even when we weren't good. It was the jungle was becoming a thing. And I mean, the home crowds were loud. People were locked in, even like we weren't, like you said, we weren't good, but just there was the approach he went about it, making the fans feel important. Like I said, putting the players out for the players to go, or for the fans to go interact with. It's just the little stuff, giving out pizzas while everybody's waiting in line for the Kentucky game. He bought into us, so we're buying into him. And he's reaping the rewards for us.
100%. 100%. That's why we're doing a podcast like this, or a video show like this. It's because we care, and then it's a talking point. And now it's just even better because we're winning, and we got a chance to be the number one team in the country tomorrow. So before we go, I want to hear your prediction, one by one. Somebody start it. Do you think Auburn will be the number one team in the country according to the AP poll tomorrow?
Yes, we got the narrative. We got the narrative storm behind us too now. As all the podcasts I've listened to since the Alabama game, and if Auburn beats Ole Miss, they'll be number one. So I really think that we have it locked up.
I say yes as well. Cody made a good point. ESPN's not dumb. They care about money. They know what that Auburn versus
games on CBS Saturday. This is the national CBS game. It's going to have whoever, I don't even know is Bill Rafferty still a CBS guy? Who are the CBS main crew? But it's going to feel like March Madness. It's going to be on CBS Saturday. I hate this 12:30 tip, but it's actually good for me because I'm calling the Marshall County tournament on the radio. I'm going to try to give the girls game to somebody else so that I can leave as soon as the Kentucky game's over and make it back for the boys game of the county championships. I'm good with the start time, but it is CBS national TV. They promote it today during the NFL playoff game. I mean, an Auburn basketball highlight was playing during the NFL 49ers Cowboys playoff game. That's incredible. But TJ, last word here. Prediction. Is Auburn going to be number one tomorrow?
I think so. I mean, you take our entire body of work. I just feel like, I don't see how someone could make a legitimate argument against that. So just taking our strength of schedule compared to their strength of schedule, what we've done on the road, teams that we've beaten, the LSUs, the Alabamas. I mean, Alabama was predicted to be a Final Four team at the beginning of the year. And so just going to their place and beating them, and that being the same team that Bama beat Gonzaga. So I just think once you factor in everything, I think it'll be hard for the AP voters not to put us number one.
And that game being ESPN on Tuesday night at 8:00 with everybody watching, I think was helped too. The first day of no football, I think, it was the first day of basketball season only. I think that was a big help. If I've got to play devil's advocate, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to have Gonzaga tomorrow. I think enough of the AP voters look at their list from the week before, and Gonzaga hadn't lost. They've scored 110 points twice or more. They're going to say, well, nobody's jumping them. I'm just going to move them up. I'll move Auburn up to 2. I'll move up whoever's behind them. I think enough writers will do that. And I think enough writers are not bought in on the SEC yet of being this power conference that these wins, like a win at Ole Miss, matters that much. So I don't think we're at the level yet that the average Joe AP writer from North Dakota or whatever is going to, I think they're going to see Gonzaga. They were number 2. Let's move them up to number 1. That's just kind of what I think is going to happen.
So, hey, I'm looking at, say that happens, Al. So I'm looking at Auburn's schedule. We got Georgia Wednesday, and then Kentucky Saturday. And then Gonzaga doesn't play next week. Gonzaga got their game, the only game next week against Pacific got postponed, I'm assuming because of COVID. So say Auburn wins those 2, but Gonzaga doesn't play. Do we jump them?
You beat Kentucky, they might put us, if there was a higher than 1, they'd put us there. That means a lot.
That's something to look at. But
well, can we just if I was Jeff Goodman doing the podcast right now, so I'm going to text Tom Crean and Bruce Pearl and say, hey, can we let Georgia play somebody else and have Auburn play Gonzaga on Wednesday night? Mark Few said he'll come to Auburn. He'll play anybody, anywhere.
We would destroy them at home.
Oh, my gosh. ESPN would hype up Chet Holmgren versus Jabari Smith. That would be like the headliner.
So
they would hype that.
So do we know Gonzaga's not going to reschedule another game or something?
Well, I mean, they might because, it says their next game is the 27th, which is a week from this coming up Thursday. So I'm sure they're looking to reschedule, but as of right now, their next game isn't until the 27th of January. So I don't know if they'll take that into account or not. Who knows?
I would think so. I think that helps Auburn big time.
Yeah.
And I think I'd probably be a little worried about our game on Wednesday against Georgia if it wasn't a rivalry game and it wasn't KD coming like his home party. You know, if it just been like Georgia being who they are, but they weren't our rival, I'd be, thinking we might be looking past them at the Kentucky game. But the fact that it's a rival, I wouldn't put too much concern.
I felt that way a little bit Saturday. Then that I think we're 4-4 in our last 8 against Ole Miss, and before that we had lost a few in a row, and everybody was like, Kermit's got Bruce's number. I felt that way going into Saturday. Is like if that would have been a different game, but a South Carolina or an Ole Miss that has given Auburn a little bit more trouble the last few years, we were going to be ready to play that game. I felt like.
Yeah.
Y'all got anything else before we get out of here?
No. Let's see what happens.
We'll wrap it up there, and hopefully next week we'll have some Alabama stuff to talk about if they'll win a couple games. I don't know what they got. I think they've got somebody bad in the midweek, I think, but I'm not sure. Hey, and can we also say that Gardo's giving us false news that Conzo Martin is getting fired or something like that? I think I talked on the radio. On the radio, we were doing predictions for Saturday. I was having to host our show on Fox Sports 102.9, and I said something about Vandy was going to beat Georgia and that Tom Crean was going to be next on the chopping block after Conzo Martin. And then I found out that was fake news. Come on, Ed.
Hey, the guy on Twitter had a blue check mark, man. I thought it was legit. Hey, by the way, Bama has LSU at home midweek, but then they have the redemption game. They get Missouri at home next weekend.
They're playing Missouri again already?
Oh, yeah, at home.
Redemption That's kind of weird.
Speaking of chopping block, there's some little rumors floating around Tennessee saying that Rick Barnes might be on the hot seat after that loss.
He should be. All that damn talent.
But he gets the talent there.
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be kind of crazy.
That's like one of those.
They're mad that Bruce Pearl's not there anymore.
Why did he get fired in Texas?
Same thing, right?
Because he had all that talent. And KD had freaking Kevin Durant. Couldn't win a natty.
But Tennessee football has shown that if you cut the cord on a coach maybe a tiny bit early and you're not happy with what's going on, it can take you a while to get back to where you want to get.
True. And, I know we're trying to get off, but we're talking about, say Georgia does hit Tom Crean. Who do they go after? There's nobody out there to go after right now. I mean, you probably go a up and coming guy to mid-major.
Stephen
that's what
Pearl.
they've done a couple times.
Oh God, no. Yeah. Bruce would say no. Somewhere out.
You're not my son anymore.
Pick another school.
Yeah, I don't think they do that, Ed, because they did that with Fox, the guy before that.
Yeah.
And the guy before that, like Felton or somebody, like a couple guys in a row, they've hired the best mid-major coach and it hadn't worked. They'd probably go some former NBA guy or something, right?
They'll probably get Coach K out of retirement, bring him over to Athens, Georgia.
Shit.
Dominique.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be dope.
All right, we'll wrap it up here. I can't wait for hiring and firing season. I'll be firing these up all the time whenever y'all are ready. I love a little coach carousel talk. I still remember, the rumors of Bruce. I don't even think we talked to another coach that year except for Bruce Pearl. It's incredible.
Shout out Jay Jacobs.
Jay Jacobs, you did that for us. Thank you very much. We'll get out of here then. Thanks for
Shout out
joining
Alec
us.
Reed right now.
Hey, keep doing what you're doing. TJ, appreciate you jumping on with us.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
All right, see you guys probably after the Kentucky game.